Hello, beautiful autism families, autism friends, autism professionals, anybody in the autism field, space. Welcome to Making Lemonade with Autism. I am Abdullahi's mom, Idol, and it is taking me a bit longer because I'm getting emotional often. Autism is an emotional thing, when it's affecting your kid. It's hard. And I still haven't finished documenting the journey, which took years and years and years of how we raised autism awareness in Minnesota, and how, in a nutshell, we put autism and Minnesota on the national map, because when people thought of autism, they certainly did not think of Minnesota. They thought of maybe New Jersey, they thought that maybe the Carolinas, California, even New York to some extent. They thought of states that had the atom, but certainly they did not think of Minnesota. And so today I want to take a break from that, and I want to start documenting the journey that we did, because this has been on the news so much. And this one is not supposed to make me cry. I think I should be angry because I'm just... the EIDBI. So a lot of people don't really know the EIDBI. So many people applied. So many people were approved by the Minnesota Department of Human Services, DHS, which is the state Medicaid agency. And they were approved all the time, like without making sure people knew what they were supposed to do. Families understood their rights and responsibilities. Providers understood their rights and responsibilities. The state Medicaid agency just kept approving them without really, how should I phrase this? After even telling us, like they would tell us, no, we don't need to train them. We don't want to do training, because we would offer. So anyway, before I get to that, let me just start, because it didn't just come from the sky. There was no such thing as EIDBI. And of course, we don't get credit, but our goal originally wasn't even to advocate for Medicaid to cover autism therapy or ABA therapy. It just wasn't. It wasn't in our radar. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't think of it. So how it started is, again, picture it, Estelle Getty plays Sophia in the Golden Girls, old school girl here. And so it pictured, my son is he was about 5 years old. He was going to a mainstream ABA agency, because at that time there were only 5. And I'll tell you the story later on how I was divorced by all of the 5, because, I'm the Elizabeth Taylor of ABA, is what I used to say when I would testify in committees. And so my son is going to, he started there when he was preschool, like 4 years old, like 4.5 or so. And they told me to take him out of preschool. They were like, nope. You have to bring him here 40 hours. Take him out of preschool. They told me to take him out of speech, out of OT, out of feeding therapy, out of occupational therapy, which is the OT. Every therapy he was going, they said, take him out. Bring him over here 40 hours. And I didn't even think of it. I was like, okay, because you're so desperate when your child has any medical condition, let alone this dream stealing disorder. And so I took him out. I took him out of preschool. I took him out of speech OTs, feeding, whatever he was going, I took him out. And I took him to this particular ABA therapy agency for 40 hours. They were doing in-home. And we were there for about 6 months. And he mastered 1,182 skills. And I remember this because this is how and why I became an advocate for this. And this is how eventually EIDBI would come about. So and I'm just really super excited. I'm super, super excited. He masters 1,182 skills within the ABA. And after 6 months, a woman by the name of Karen Morris comes up to me and she says, we're going to discharge your son because he's not going to be recovered from autism. We're not going to cure him from autism. And I'm like, what now? When did you find a cure for autism? I didn't even know there was a cure, because I know I've done so many things trying to get autism out of my kid, and I was just devastated. And so I contacted her boss, who was the owner of the agency here. He still is. And I said to him, he masters so many skills. He's doing so well. Why do you guys want to suspend him or terminate his services? And I remember he came to visit me I remember when he came, we were living in a townhome in Savage. He came, I remember what he was wearing, the clothes he's wearing, the shoes he was wearing. I remember where he sat in the therapy room. I remember there was a guy with him who's now a lobbyist. Small world. There's a guy with him who's now a lobbyist, Josh, at the Capitol. And he said, no, we're going to discharge him. That's it. He's not going to be cured from autism. And I after they left, I was so heartbroken. I was so mad. I was so angry. I didn't know what to do. I just took him out of everywhere. It's only been 6 months. He mastered so many skills. And so, what do I got? About 5 minutes. Okay. So I then said, what can I do? You know, the mama bear comes in. And I thought, okay, what can I do? The owner at that time was a member of the Minnesota Autism Task Force. So I go in and as a public member, and I would later become a member of that after they ganged up on me because when I wanted equality. But anyway, at that time I would go in there and I testified in the whatever minutes they gave me as a public member. And I said, children, we don't have a cause for autism. We don't have a cure for autism. I don't think children should be discharged or terminated from their medically necessary treatment. And there was a woman by the name of Amy Dawson. She was a lawyer. She's still a lawyer. She's also a judge, I believe, somewhere in Hennepin County. And she is the one who really sort of took my side and said, you know, let's listen to this mom. What is she saying? Is that happening? How is this happening? And so Amy and I would get to know each other later on, and we would be on the same team sometimes not so much, because she also represented people that were against EIDBI later on, about a couple of years later. But at that time, so they couldn't help me. And I thought, okay, what else can I do? I then went to the owner of the agency. So the agency has a location in the Midwest. They have a location in the East, and they have a location in the West, East, West, and Midwest. So I contacted the East and the West owners or heads. They're still there. There was a husband and a wife, Scott and Linda. I emailed them. I spoke with Scott, the husband. He called me after leaving him like 900 messages. And he was like, you know, we don't have, I can't help you. Linda and I can't help you. We're going to have to terminate your kid. And so I've exhausted all of that. And I thought, okay, what else can I do? This can't be right. How can they do this? Do they have the right to do this? This is, you know, what the heck? Do I have any rights? Does my kid have any rights? So if you remember, we have now some connection with Governor Plenty's office. Brian Leclerc has been helping us with raising autism awareness. So I went to Brian and I said, first I went to Holden and Sahil and I said, do you guys know this? They discharged my son, and Holden, her son was getting ABA. Sahil was just going to school. And Holden was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And so we went to Brian. Holden, Sahil, and I went to Brian. And we said, is this normal? Can they do this? And so Brian sent us to the Department of Human Services Commissioner at that time, who was Carl Ludeman. Carl Ludeman referred us to the Assistant Commissioner of Mental Health, who was Dr. Sulik. Dr. Sulik referred us to the Director of Mental Health, I want to say, Dr. Glennis Edwall. Dr. Glennis Edwall referred us to Alex Bartolik, and who was the Director of Disability, and I believe she just kind of started the job then. She came from Hennepin County. She was the Director of Disability at Minnesota Department of Medicaid, DHS. And Alex said, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but we don't even cover. Medicaid doesn't even pay for ABA therapy. What the heck are you talking about? And we're like, what? Yes, they do. My son is getting it. Holden's like, my daughter is getting it. Yes, you do. And she said, no, we don't cover it. And it was her and Gary Cox. I don't know. Alex retired. I think maybe Gary retired too. I need to retire. God. So they said we don't cover. And we were baffled. And I think I'm going to end it there, because then we were like, what the heck does this mean? And then we would go to Amy Dawson, and we would have lunch with her at a Somali restaurant in St. Paul. And she would explain to us how this is working, because we were like, you do cover it. And they said, no, we don't cover it. So I'm going to end it there. I didn't cry. Isn't that awesome? I'll end it there. I'll try to post this video soon. I'll try to just finish all the other videos. But eventually EIDB, you know, it would become EIDBI. It wasn't EIDBI before. It was different stuff. But I will explain it. And hopefully we can get to a place where which is why and how we started this. It is to help and benefit the children so that they need less and less services as they get older. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. See you later. Bye for now.